The Wickedizer shoots, scores! Centers it in front, Wickedizer scores! Wickedizer in, scores! Hayley Wickedizer scores!
And first off, I want to start by thanking everybody for being here today. It's been 4 days of a lot of sitting, a lot of discussions, and you know, I'm sure a few people have left, but for all of you that have stayed and are here today, it means a lot to the women's game, and you have a lot to offer, and we need that. And you know, I see Brian Burke here. I've seen you here all week at every session. You've been getting ripped in all these sessions. Today, you're not going to get ripped, but it's people like yourself and all of you that I think really can help our game of women's hockey moving forward. We heard Brendan Shanahan the first day talk about the game has changed. It's not what it was anymore. And the question I posed to all of you, I don't need a show of hands, but how many of you have women in your life, mothers, sisters, daughters? And how many of you, if they wanted to play the game of hockey, would want them to have that opportunity? Well, if you look at the global web of hockey, as Ralph Kruger talked about yesterday, and we listen to Jacques Roque's comments, I think a lot of people said to me, well, that's, you know, maybe a negative thing. But actually, I looked at his comments as a positive thing because I think it might be one of the reasons that I'm standing here and this whole panel is here today to speak to you. It's an opportunity for us. And I think out of this summit and out of what we're going to talk about today, the biggest thing that we all want to see is, there's a lot of talk, but we'd like to see action, and we need to see action in the growth of the game. And I brought a video here today made by Hockey Canada that I think summarizes just how far the women's game has come from the first World Championship in 1990 to the Olympic Games in Vancouver. You'll see the difference in the quality of play and just how far it's come, so we can roll that video.
This is the first ever Women's World Hockey Championship. The entry into the Olympic Games that is going to be the signal to the Eastern Europeans to put some priority towards women's hockey, to give it some of the resources that it requires.
Very aggressive. Defense moves in from the point. A backhand shot and they score! A weak looking backhand by Stinson. With Sanahara. Oh, but in front, Sanahara
So today, I think my purpose of being up here is to give you some statistics, have you make your own conclusions, and then propose a few solutions for where the future of the game is going. In July this year, there was a think tank held in Viramäki, Finland. The top 14 countries in women's hockey were invited, as you see here. And what came of that think tank was some suggestions, but a lot of information, I think, on the game of women's hockey. And I just want to go through some of those statistics that many of you may not really be aware of, what's happening in the global game around the world. If you look at the player registrations from Canada right down to France at the bottom, you can see there's a huge difference in the numbers of women that are playing the game. the discrepancy between Canada and the US is obviously very noticeable. One thing we notice on here is Finland has had huge growth in the last 3 years. They've, I think, tripled the amount of women playing hockey in their country. And it's largely due to the man sitting up here today, Arto Siepi, who without him in that federation pushing every single day for the women's game, I think they would be further behind than ever before where the women's game is going, which is a positive start. If we look at national leagues in top 14 countries, the good thing that we're seeing is that in each of these countries they do have a national league or some form of elite league for their players to play. But the one thing that was concerning to me is that out of the Olympic Games, all the players surveyed said that the Olympic competition is dramatically better than the domestic leagues that they're playing in their own countries, outside of Canada and the US, the Canadian and US players. And you can also see that the amount of games in their national team. What China is doing is they've invested a ton of money into 30 players in their country, basically centralized them, hothoused them, and tried to really develop a national program. The problem with that is they've only got a few hundred players in their entire country, and outside of their national team, there's nothing to support it. There's no development system. So I think we need more exhibition games for national teams and for the under 18, about 480,000. My club team that I play on in Calgary that no longer exists, but was the top club team in the world for many years, we operated on a budget of $480,000 a year that made profits of about $70,000 with really no help. I don't see how you can run a national team on a budget of $480,000 to go about all of this. If you look at the breakdown of how the monies are allocated for national teams, in Canada and the US, it's obvious. We're leading the way. We're investing in the game, and the game is in good shape here in North America. You know, it's great to see the US is spending the most on development, and I think that's likely and largely due to Title IX and what the NCAA has been able to do for women's hockey in the world. We look at Finland and one of the bright federation level sitting around the tables. If we look at youth development, about half of the countries in the top 14 have a youth development program for women's hockey. Less than half have a long-term development plan. For those of you that were here day one and you heard Dr. Steve Norris speak on skill development against midget AAA and junior A teams, and we played 30 against women's international competition. And I really believe that that was what separated us and what ultimately led to our success. And I think for many of these national women's teams, finding an appropriate level that they can play against on the male side gives you that competition level when you maybe don't have access to it on a female side. So to me, it helps the level of the national teams in a short-term way. Plans for Sochi. You look at the top 14 countries, 7 of 14 have a plan right now for Sochi. 5 are in very basic stages. In Canada, and I'm sure it's the same, possibly in the US, is that before Vancouver was done, a year before Vancouver was done, we're already talking about Sochi. You know, the players, I think, in our mentality is we stand on the blue line and you get the gold medal and everybody asks, how does it feel? It feels great to get the gold medal, but the first thing often crosses my mind is, oh my God, we have to try to do this again in 4 years. And so we're always in a long-term plan development and thinking well ahead, and that's really key. So what are some of the things that we can do right now for the women's game? Well, I think at the IHF level, these are some of the suggestions that came out of the Vera Mackey think tank, was to promote female hockey as equal around the world through various promotional materials. The recruitment that we talked about, continue to have these IHF development camps where maybe the best players from the top countries get together, they learn how to train, they learn how to compete, then they can go back to their countries and share that knowledge. Having coach exchanges, one of the biggest weaknesses, in my opinion, in female hockey is coaching. We just don't have enough educated, quality coaches, and the difference that a quality coach can come in and make immediately on a program. You look at Mark Johnson with the American team, having a guy of that caliber to come in, a proven player, a proven winner, that's huge for women's hockey to have people like that in our game.
Well, I think it's an investment. I think from the IHF level, putting some money in to identify who the top players are that could currently maybe come over and be put into these leagues. I've heard that the Russians have been talking to some of the leagues here about sending some players over in the immediate short term. But I also agree with exchanging ideas and maybe sending some of our top people into these countries to help as well. But it's a dollar amount, it's an investment, and the federations have to buy in. Yeah, I was in a meeting just this week with the NHL and all the stakeholders in women's hockey, and I think we have the ear of the NHL. I think they need to look at it not necessarily from a business plan right now, but from an investment, a sponsorship level to get it off the ground, to get it rowing. We're not talking about big salaries. We're talking about just sensible steps to put a product on the ice that can really entertain people, and then go from there. And they are legitimately interested. They've had conversations, and just looking forward to seeing where it can go.
Hayley, you talked about exchange programs on the podium, and how Canada and Finland, I believe, have a formal exchange program. But through your numerous tournament experience internationally, when you talk to the players from other countries, the ones that haven't really developed a women's program, are you hopeful that they can break through the cultural and economic barriers to participate in an exchange program?
Oh, I'm hopeful. I think it's going to happen. I think a lot of this is just not communicating. I know that Canada and the U.S., they want to send resources. They want to help people. We have players that will go over and coach, and it's just a matter of asking for it. And sometimes in North America, we get caught up in North American hockey, but Europe needs to also ask for what they need, and I think the help is out there.
Hayley, you've done a lot of your training with men in Sweden. What do you envision your role would be with a league that this was to come?
Well, I think for the right now, I'd play in it because I don't have a place to play. But for the long term, I think I'd love to be involved, maybe at a management level. I think I see my role in the game, maybe internationally, to help grow the game and identify what's happening in countries and get the ear of maybe people on the men's side who can influence the women's game because of the experiences that I've had in men's hockey and just in the different facets of the game. So action. I hope that we see changes. I mean, it's encouraging what we heard today from the IIHF moving forward with the leagues, with the development of the young girls in the European countries, so desperately needed. If we could see a variety of those things happening within this year or the next year, to me, it's a success having this summit for us.